Okay, we are recording. It's 5 minutes after 11, and these are the minutes that I was just bringing up to review from June's meeting. Since the subcommittee paragraphs are there from the previous minutes, I'll just inform everybody that we decided the RDA adoption subcommittee, we're going to go ahead and postpone that. We have got some work done on that, which is great, but we've decided just as a committee, it's just kind of not the right time for it as workloads go. So we're going to pick that back up probably at the beginning of the year, and we'll get the new RDA manual plotted out and written, and we'll give you more information on that as we go along. Spanish template questions from the committee. Did anybody read anything in the minutes that they had questions on, or perhaps Heather got wrong? Don't tell her that, but I'm just kidding, Heather. She's going to leave.
Right.
In protest, she's going to leave. Fine, I'm not coming to your meeting. No, anybody have anything? I'm not seeing anything in the chat or... All right, well, I guess if there are no objections, we'll need somebody to move to approve the minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second to approve the minutes?
I'll second. This is Beth.
All right, it has been moved and seconded. If there are objections to passing the minutes, chat or vocalize or something and let me know. Otherwise, we will pass them. Going once, going twice. Minutes are approved. Okay, let me close those. Let's get back to the agenda here. Beth, do you want to give us an update on authorities, and do you need the screen at all, or are you just going to can you just do it verbally?
At some point I'll need the screen, John. I guess I wanted to know the order of presentation. I can give an update on what I've been doing with authority work, but I know we also wanted to go over some things that we wanted to point out to catalogers and some reports that I'm reviewing and making changes from. Mm-hmm. Do we want to do that later in the meeting or as a part of this?
That's fine if you want to do it later in the meeting, and I can transfer the screen over to you. That's not a problem.
Okay, so I'll just give a brief overview of where we are right now with authority work. I had already sent out a year's worth of new bib records for authority work with our new vendor, Marchive. I got those updates back and put all those updates in place along with new authority records and updated authority records. And then there was a report that was generated of near matches for that year's worth of records that I worked through, as well as some help from others, and we got those corrections made to bib records. And I had finished processing all the bibliographic records to update the 0 tags that are in there that give the link to our authority records. And just the 15th of July sent out another batch of records for review by Marchive. in the hopes that we can do this on a monthly or bi-monthly basis so that our records are corrected more frequently and our authorities are all up to date. So I think that's a overview of all I've been doing. The other thing is that I ran the job that links authority records to each other so that you can see the see alsos and the see froms. Those don't appear in the catalog display, but they do appear in the browse list, which I can show you guys later. So that work has been done as well. So a lot of authority cleanup and work has been done in the last month.
So Beth, does that mean that we should be seeing the subfield 0 Sage tags now instead of the DLCs? Or?
There's still a kind of a mixture. And I was going to bring that up later, but it's good to bring it up now as well. There's the way that the authority program is written. It looks at a certain tag in the authority record to grab what it should display in that field. And when we first loaded all those new authority records, I did not realize that because with our other vendor, it was always just Sage. So I've fixed a lot of them, but there still is, because the program exists in two different places. It exists on the our utility server, but it also, when somebody verifies a record in the MARC editor, that coding doesn't incorporate the new coding that I made to have it say Sage. So basically, I'm going to try to fix all of those and change the 003 in the authority records to say Sage, and then no matter where we are grabbing authority from, it'll say Sage in that. And if folks don't know what we're referring to, I can point it out when I'm doing the presentation on authority updates, but basically it's that 0 tag that's after author fields and subject fields. Some of them are saying Sage right now, and some of them are saying DLC, but they all refer to our link to the authority file. So I'll be working on getting all those cleaned up if you still see some DLCs.
All righty. Heather, do you want to give us a quick update on the CAT level subcommittee?
So far, we've worked through the available documents we have. I was going to name them, but I was not as prepared. So we went through and fixed the, or updated, not fixed, the Cat 1 requirements, the Cat 1 application. We did redid the core competency requirements. And we fixed some of the stuff in the Sage cataloging policy. There's still some more stuff to be done. I've finished a majority of the Cat 1 tests. And then I have to create another set of tests. Surprise! And then the others have been working on the Cat 2 and 3 question quizzes. There, I think, is going to be another document that pertains to communication and how we should be approaching that. And we're meeting again this afternoon, but we should have it mostly done and finalized by the next meeting, I think.
So Heather, this is Beth. A question, do you think that some of the documents will be ready for review by the council meeting in September?
I think so. At least the 4 that we have done right now, we were just waiting for other mentors to look at to see if they had any input, but we're essentially done with those.
Okay.
Now.
let's see.
So we'll keep that in mind when we're putting the agenda together for the council meeting.
And that is that the second Tuesday or third Tuesday in September? I can never remember.
It's actually the third Tuesday in
Third Tuesday.
September.
Okay, so theoretically, those might be ready at the end of the August meeting. So that would give 3 weeks for review. Okay, just kind of working that out in my head.
Yeah. Okay.
And for those that are wondering what this subcommittee is doing, they are specifically looking at what the qualifications are for each of the 3 CAT levels, and making updates as they're needed, and kind of trying to come up with a standardized process for moving from one to the other, what going from Cat 2 to Cat 1 looks like, going from Cat 3 to Cat 2, those qualifications and competencies, getting them all written down on paper. And later on, we're going to be looking at what the regression policy is, if that needs to happen in some cases. Hopefully not. But just so that we can give some materials and resources to applicants who maybe have been waiting for quite a long time for something like this to show up. That's the subcommittee has been doing a lot of work, and it'll be great when it's all finished.
And unfortunately, though, it does mean anybody who has previously submitted Cat 1 applications will have to submit them again. But it should be a quicker, more streamlined process this time, and nobody should be waiting forever.
Right, streamlining. We like that. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Heather or Beth, on that at all?
That's all I have for now.
Okay. We already talked about the RDA adoption subcommittee. I'll move on to chair nominations. We're not going to take public nominations today, so don't get scared. I put this on the agenda as my term is up in October. So at our next meeting, we will nominate and approve a new chair for the cataloging committee. So I bring it up now just to let everybody know if they would like to consult other catalogers in the committee for a possible nomination. Please do so, and if there are any that would like to be considered, to please email me privately, let me know, and we will get that taken care of in 2 months. It's been a long 2 years, but it's been rewarding. At times, it's been rewarding. I'll put it that way. Golly, is it Monday or what? Okay.
You're going to scare people away, John.
I am going to scare people away. No, you don't have to do any public nominations at the meeting. I remember didn't we do that like a few years ago?
For you, we did.
For me? And
Yeah.
the following meeting, there was nobody there. Everyone's like, shine that. But no, don't worry. Contact me privately for chair nominations. Please consult the person first. Don't just email me and say, I think so-and-so would be a great chair. Well, you should probably ask their permission to be nominated first. Okay, so before we move on to some of the discussion topics for today, I always open it up for anybody to bring any specific cataloging questions, issues, tricky scenarios they came across. If anybody has anything they'd like to bring up, the floor is yours. Going once, going twice. All righty. So before I turn things over to Beth, I've got a couple of things. It's not necessarily, I didn't want to call it training because it's not really training. It's kind of more like reminders, I guess. But I put discussion in case there's questions about any of these. I've got a couple of examples of parts with specifically having to do with TV seasons. Let me see if I can find those. I think, now let's look at Big Bang Theory first. Now, this is an example of something we like to see, probably because Beth probably fixed it, would be my guess. Just
You would be right, John.
Yeah, you recognize this one?
Yes, I do.
Okay, this one's fairly recent. What are the dates for this? Looks like the earliest date is November last year. But you can see that the parts all look nice and lovely, right, after Beth fixed it, and they all say complete set. Now, the point that I kind of want to bring up about parts management, in addition to the fact that there is a document available on the website that talks about guidelines, how to use parts, assigning parts, and what we want them to look like, is that sometimes when you are adding parts, you are adding your items and parts onto a record that doesn't look so great. So what do? For example, if you are adding something onto a record and say it doesn't look like this, say they don't all say complete set, say they don't have anything on them, for example, there aren't any parts, or let's say it doesn't have, the capitalization is different. We see sums that are in all caps, say complete set in all caps, or have different terminology that means complete set, but doesn't say complete set.
Such as complete season.
Complete season.
Which is a common, yeah, which is a common, I guess, mistake. And it makes sense in one way, but if we want to keep our vocabulary consistent, we need to just say complete set rather than complete season.
Mm-hmm. So let's say, for example, you come up with one, I don't have an example here, but it has complete set in all caps. Say the record is there, there's one other item from whoever brought it in, and it says complete set in all caps. Now, because you are a diligent cataloger, you know that the capitalization we want to see is this right here. Not in all caps, but each word capitalized, complete set like this. So you're kind of forced to do it wrong one way or the other. And I'll explain what I mean. You can either create a little problem and be consistent with the other library and not cause a problem for patrons, because if you put in all caps complete set to match the other library, it'll be consistent, right? Or should you add your item as the document says here, where it says complete set, without it being in all caps? Either way, you cause a problem, right? So which one should you do? Should you follow the rules and be inconsistent? Or should you do what the other library did and be consistent? I guess that's the question.
I have to admit, John, when I was going through and cleaning all these up, I went for consistency. So if the majority had complete set all capitalized, I made the other ones over to that one. Not that I can't go back and clean those up again, but my main concern was the patrons and what they're seeing when they go to place a hold. And if there's inconsistencies, then the patron has more choices, and they may not get it the hold filled from the closest location because they're arbitrarily picking one version of the part versus another.
So if I'm interpreting that right, you picked the smaller problem over the bigger problem.
I
Right?
did.
You chose to create a small one and not a big one.
Yes. Unless there was a situation where only one person had assigned parts and nobody else had, and then I had 6 libraries to correct, it's like, well, I might as well, you know, get it set up correctly and have them all have complete set with the correct capitalization. But there were some records I found where a complete set was done 3 different ways. And maybe 4 if complete season was in there. So I was just striving for consistency and getting these parts cleaned up because of the parts functionality now being added to the Evergreen app, and wanting patrons to have a successful experience in the app.
So the message, I think, for catalogers, if I'm interpreting this correctly, is consistency matters, right? So if I'm going to add mine onto this, which I don't do the movies here at my library, so I'm just going to kind of guess here. A little bit of awareness goes a long way, right? Because if I'm going to go over here and look in the parts menu at what's available, even though I may be used to typing something in particular, something that might even be correct when it comes to the guidelines, such as complete set here. If I see that all of the other libraries are consistent, but they are consistently typing complete set all in caps, I'm going to want to be consistent with the other libraries so as to not cause a problem for the patrons. Would that be fair to say, Beth?
I think so. Otherwise, we're stuck with fixing all the others in that situation. And I didn't know whether everybody would be comfortable doing that, or I have to come behind the scenes and correct them later.
Mm-hmm.
So we just want to use parts that are already available in the record unless it does not actually fit what you have in hand.
Yes, that's correct.
That's true. If we see verbiage that is completely inappropriate in the parts menu and not descriptive, then that issue needs to be taken to a mentor or Beth or myself as one that needs to be fixed. Because we could do it consistent with the other library, but we're furthering on the problem, right?
Potentially, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Something else to bring up in regards to TV seasons. If everybody is circulating it as a complete set, there's really not a need for parts at all because everybody's circulating it the same way. So when you look at this one, everybody is circulating it the same way. So this record didn't even need parts. But once one person adds a part, the other people have to define the part as well. So it's kind of a ripple effect. So just as you're thinking through cataloging a DVD set, don't just automatically assign parts unless you think that you're going to need to. There are some sites that have to divide up the set because they don't have the right DVD packaging, or they've made a choice that they don't want to circulate the whole season at one time. But I think for the most part, most libraries are circulating the whole season. And the reason I bring that up, it's not that it's wrong. It's just that when you assign a part, there's an extra step in the hold process for the patron because they actually have to physically choose that part because parts are defined. So just a heads up to be thinking about that. I don't want people not to assign parts if they need to, but I also don't want them to go to the extra work to assign a part when it's probably not necessary. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. So let me pull up Deadwood. Why did I pull up Deadwood? Now here's kind of an example. I don't know what all of them look like. This may be one that you fixed too, Beth. So take a look here at this. Here's an example of Milton Free Water breaking them out into separate disks. And then the other libraries have complete sets. So this is an example of when parts are needed. But most, well, I won't say most, many TV show seasons aren't like this, and so we don't have libraries that have broken them out, in which case we wouldn't need complete sets. But the reason I pulled up this record here is, let me go down to find all of these 700s, right? It's always the question, how many 700s does a movie or a TV show need, right? Because there's all these people that are affiliated with the project, whether they be actors or crew members or whatever. And so it becomes, what's the word? Tedious, sure, okay, but so much of our job is tedious, right? To make sure that all of these authorities are the correct authorities, right? Like, for example, let's go down here to Mr. David Schwartz here, and there isn't a relator term here, so we don't know what David Schwartz did as a part of Deadwood. But thankfully, there's a note up here in the 508 production credits note, and we see his name here under theme music. Okay, so he wrote the music. Now, I would imagine that David Schwartz is probably a pretty common name. And so when I click here, okay, I see quite a few David Schwartzes here. And the one that I don't see is David Schwartz without a middle initial or a date here. So just to be sure, I'm going to grab his name here and I'm going to go look him up in the Library of Congress authorities. Okay, I looked him up here, but I'm pretty sure my session is timed out. Just to make sure that I have the right David Schwartz here. Oh boy, look at all these David Schwartzes. Now, I got lucky this time because look at this. I bet that one's probably right. However, pro tip, one of the things that I do when I'm looking through all of these different authorities is I pay attention to this bib records column here. And I usually start with ones that have more bib records attached to them. Like these are the ones I would usually start with. That doesn't necessarily mean it will be one of those, but oftentimes it is. And in this case, I'm going to look at this authority record right here. And I see right here, Deadwood. Okay, so that's the guy. So I'm going to change this here bib record so that we have the right David Schwartz here. David Schwartz, composer. Okay, and then we have, oh, I didn't look up the relator terms. I believe composer is a relator term. Anybody want to correct me?
So John,
Yes.
I just add the subfield C. Do you add both a C and an E when they're the same?
They are the same, aren't they? And most of the time they aren't. You're not going to get a subfield C with the relator term in it.
Right.
But to be consistent, I know it looks wonky in the OPAC, but
Yeah.
I can't really justify not adding a relator term, since in RDA that's what establishes the relationship, right?
Okay. I guess I was just thinking the C qualifies it. So
It does, and like I said, it looks weird, but the functionality of the subfield E relator term, I don't know. In my mind, I can't really justify excluding it just because of what's in the subfield C.
okay.
I won't say I'm necessarily authoritative on that, but Heather says it really is. Are you meaning it really is excessive?
Yes,
Okay.
there's so many 700s in that record.
There are a lot, right? And in addition, in addition to the 700s, you do see the 710s for the distribution company and the production company. Although this appears to be telling me the same information, right? This is probably, there's only one distribution company at HBO, because the production company of this is going to be, I don't know. I don't have the disc with me. It would probably say who the production company is on the disc, but I can't say
And
for sure.
John,
Yes.
I probably need to add an authority record for that version of David Schwartz, huh?
I would guess, yeah, since it's not here in our authorities.
Okay. That's probably in my report.
Do you want to go ahead and we'll switch over to
Well,
that?
no, actually, it's not going to be in my report because I'm looking at the bib ID. The report that I have is just our most recent bibs, so I'll make a note to go back and add that one later. But I'll be showing something similar.
Now we had
Okay.
a brief discussion about interfield punctuation earlier this week, because normally you would have a comma preceding a subfield E.
Yes.
And I'm trying to think of what the rules are when what the exceptions are for preceding punctuation in subfield E. Anybody want to correct me? Should I not have this comma right here?
I was thinking that the comma wouldn't be there because of the parentheses.
I was thinking that too, and I would certainly, if the subfield, say it was a subfield D and it ended with a hyphen, there would be no reason for that hyphen comma. And so I'm just wondering if that includes every bit of data that ends in punctuation or not. I'm not exactly sure, but it provoked a lively discussion earlier this week. I'll have to look that up and see for sure, but I will leave it like this for now.
Okay.
And then I will save. And then we will, I think, Beth, I'm going to save the series title, book title discussion for next time. And I think I'll go ahead and have you, with our remaining time we have today, go ahead and just demonstrate what you have in your reports, if that's okay.
I mean, That's fine. I don't need a lot of time. So if you still want to cover that, you can cut me off. But I will give folks a taste of some of the things that come up in the report, and maybe some things that they can watch out for or look up when they're bringing their records in.
Okay. Do you want me to send the presentation over to you?
I'm sure either that or I can choose it from my end. What's easier?
Oh. Let's try this. I think it actually worked.
I think it did. I just got to get over to the right screen here. The report. So you should see the report up on the screen that I get of either it's called multiple matches or high probability matches. This is a report I get from MARCHIVE that lists as they were going through the records, they would come across maybe a name authority where they couldn't make a good choice of which one to choose because there were multiples. So we could take a look at this first one. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Almeida Joaquim. So it's an actor. The tag was the 700 field, so it's a movie. And John was just going over the 700s. So what I typically do is I bring up, this is the bib ID number, and I've already brought that up in the staff mode, and you can see it's a movie. If I go to edit it, I can find that 700 right down here. And you notice that a bunch of the other 700s have a subfield 0 tag. And that's because the system was able to identify an authority record in our system that corresponded with this actor or with the other actor. But because this one is either doesn't exist or is not defined correctly, it couldn't come up with a subfield 0. So I'll go back to the report. You can see that when MARCHIVE was doing its work, it identified some possibilities out of the Library of Congress that might be the proper authority record. Well, lots of times the first thing I'll do is, oh, this is a movie. I'm going to go to the movie database and see if I can find out when this actor was born, because that's going to narrow down my choices. And the fact that it has a subfield E indicating that it's an actor, it's another clue. Oh, the movie database will help me with this. So I go over to the web and find my link to the IMDb database. And I've already brought up Joaquim. If I'm butchering that name, feel free to correct me. But right here in his bio, I find that he was born in 1957. So like, oh, okay. So that 1957 record I saw over in my report is most likely the record that I want. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go to the Library of Congress, look up that same actor in the Library of Congress, and sure enough, I look up that one that had the 1957 as a birth date, and it is this actor. One of the things I look at is the movies that this actor has been in, and it might not mention the movie that I'm looking at directly, but if I go back over to the IMDb database and scroll down, it lists all the movies that this actor has appeared in, and I see the Legion right there. And so it's like, oh, okay, this is for sure the actor that corresponds with the authority record. And I can go to my bib and I can now add that birth date. Now I can either add it by going out to the authority, or I can just add it directly here. Dash, oops. Okay. Does that look right?
I think so.
Okay. All right. I'm in the flat text, but if I switched back to, let me go ahead and save this before I do that. I could now click on, I already checked, and I'll bring that up here. In another tab, I checked, and we do actually have an authority record for that actor with 24 bibs referencing this particular actor. So I know there's an authority record there. So I could click on this. All right, and there it is. And I could click on apply. Click on save, and it adds my subfield 0 tag. And you can see that it's still coming in with that DLC, but I'll fix that later. So any questions about that part? We have a quiet group. Okay, so that one is now fixed. And then I can move on to some other ones. Let's see, I could do, the illustrator might take some more time, but basically what I would do is I'd look at these two authority records and see if there was any mention of Michael Ahrens as an illustrator, see what other information I can ferret out about this particular person to make sure that, you know, maybe he illustrates graphic novels or children's materials, and this is a children's material book, that kind of thing. Some of those take a little bit more chasing down, but and sometimes I just have to leave it the way it is because there's no authority record out there for this particular person. And if that's the case, we just leave it as is, and maybe eventually there will be an authority record for the person. Here's another actor that I could go through that same process with. Here's a subject heading. So in this particular record, let me go ahead and bring it up so we can see it. What this report is telling me is that behavior is not a valid subject heading on its own. And we can verify that by looking it up in the Library of Congress as well. But first, I'll bring it up here in database. I'm pretty sure I saved it. Okay, we'll go back up and save it again. Don't want to not respond to warnings. Okay. Okay, so here we have kids storybook, picture book. If I edit it, go down to subject headings, we have behavior, juvenile fiction, but it's telling me that behavior by itself is not legit. So let's go out to Library of Congress and see that for ourselves. And I have so many tabs open here. Okay, so now I want to do a new search, and I want to do a subject search. Okay, now behavior is an LC annotated children's catalog heading, but it's not an adult heading. So if we come back to this, we've got a 0. In this case, we have the children's heading down here, and that's legit, but it's not legit as an adult heading with juvenile as a division. Make sense? So if we want to leave the 650 zero in, we've got to make a choice. If I go back over to the report, it gave me some suggestions as to different kinds of behavior that I could put in as an alternative. Are any of these ones that jump out to somebody?
Well, I don't really have the book in front of me, but is this behavior
Let me
specifically
hop back.
tied to human behavior?
Boyd steadfastly refuses to take responsibility for any of his mistakes. So lots of times the description will give us a clue that this is a human behavioral issue. It's definitely not animal behavior. So we could switch it over to human behavior. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Heather? Here comes the sigh.
No, it was where, did we have a subject heading for blame? In general, not in there.
You know, we could look up additional headings if behavior is not specific enough. Obviously, when the Marchive goes through this process, it's trying to mold that behavior into something that it can try to identify. So it's giving us hints, but obviously we don't have to act on any of those. So yeah, we could pursue Heather's idea of looking at, let's do a search for blame and see which comes up. But I haven't seen it before that I remember, but all right, we do have blame. There you go, Heather. So we have authorized and references. So we could put blame instead of behavior. How does the group feel about that?
I just want to see a record that utilizes the blame in art subject heading.
You do?
Yes, I do. Blame in art. I try and emphasize blame in all of my art pieces. I don't know.
Wait, you're going to have to write your own book, John, and so you can actually use that subject heading.
It'll be a Cat 1 test that utilizes that subject heading. No, go ahead, Beth.
No, just sometimes I look at the authority record in question and kind of think, you know, just to kind of see, does it really apply? Which it should. I mean, you know, blame is blame, but I'm just saying personal criticism. I don't see any reason why we couldn't use blame instead of behavior. It's just being more specific. Or we could switch it to human behavior and add an additional subject heading of blame. So this is kind of a subjective process, but what we do need to do is correct the one that's wrong for certain. And let me look at that report again. So human behavior. So I'll just put in, switch this to a lowercase. Wiped up the whole thing. Okay, and then I can just add another tag. Sometimes I forget to do the tab. and wonder why it's not typing anything. Okay. So there we go. So this record is fixed. I should go up and add my initials here so you guys know that I made this change. Okay. Okay, so that's done.
I feel like when anybody is importing anything from anywhere, you should check the authorities to make sure they are accurate headings of any kind. Even if you're importing them from a good source, it's not a bad idea to check them to make sure they are accurate. It literally takes like 2 seconds.
Okay, and an easy way to do that is to click on this validate tag. At least that will get you the majority of the tags. So if I click on this, you can see the check mark besides the ones that it can find and a question mark besides the ones that it doesn't find. Curious.
It's because the subfield V's, I bet.
I bet it is.
It's not just checking for subfield 0, is it? If it doesn't have a subfield 0, will it automatically come up as a correction?
No, it does. It does look at our authorities, but the subfield V does mess it up sometimes because you're not going to necessarily have. You may have an authority record for responsibility, but you won't have one that combines both responsibility and juvenile fiction, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But because we just looked these up in Library of Congress, at least the blame and the human behavior, I didn't look up responsibility. I did verify that behavior was a juvenile. So let's just look up responsibility real quick while we're in the mode of checking this record out. Okay, we can see that it's a Library of Congress subject heading. I do not see that it's a children's heading though.
Ooh, interesting.
So it's another example of a heading can work in one aspect but not the other, and there's not always duplication between library children's subject headings and adult subject headings. So this would be a case where probably later in that report, it's going to tell me that responsibility is not a valid children's heading. And so I need to pick another one for a children's heading. Let me see if I can scan down through that report real quick and see if that is the case. This report is in alphabetic order, so I can go down. Nope, I'm not seeing it in here. Curious. So am I not viewing the Library of Congress correctly?
I was going to look it up in the other web page that allows you to search the children's thesaurus.
Okay.
id.loc.gov.
That one. Okay. Responsibility. Let's see if it shows up here. No, it does not show up here either, so it should not be.
Okay.
It should not be there. Or something else should be there.
When it's checking the authorities, is it actually checking the indicators? Because if it's only checking 650 responsibility fiction, then it is correct. It's the indicator that is the
Well, didn't it?
hit share.
Yeah.
When it did behavior.
Yeah. Yeah, when it did
Right.
behavior, it indicated that it was not valid, because it wanted something else besides just behavior. But yet behavior by itself was legit for children's. So
well, that would make sense if it's not searching the children's side of it and it's just searching the adult Library of Congress subject headings. It makes sense that it would have found a problem with behavior, but
yeah, it's supposed to be searching. It's supposed to be searching both, I believe. But this is a new process, a new vendor, so we're going to come across things that maybe are done a little bit different. But I see that I'm already at the hour. But at least you've been given a taste of kind of the different types of errors that come back from MARCHIVE. And here's an example of a series that needs to be fixed, whereas the record just has buckshots. It's actually supposed to be Buckshot's Mystery. And so I can go in and fix that particular record and look at any other records that maybe don't have that series identified correctly, and maybe we need to download a series authority, those kind of things. So it's a good exercise, and this is a much smaller file or report than the last time, so I'm happy. We're dealing with, if we send this off on a regular basis, we'll be able to keep a lot of these things cleaned up, and our database is going to look great. So anyway, thanks, John.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. It's a lot of work, and assigning subject headings, and I'd say working with controlled vocabularies, it's a big part of what we do. So I appreciate everybody just kind of taking the extra minute to check and verify and look up those subject headings, just to try and not only make Beth's job easier, but also to help discovery for our patrons. So, well, we are 2 minutes after 12, and we covered a lot today. So I'll let you all go off on your lunch break. Thanks for being here today. I'll get this recorded, and we'll get the minutes out and the recording up sometime before the October meeting. But with that, I'll just say thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks a lot, John.
See ya.
Thanks.